Thank you guys for coming. We're gonna be talking about season 8 so far, which we've only had a couple episodes, but we're gonna start by kind of a brief recap of season 7, and then move into some chat about the 2 episodes that have aired, and then maybe some predictions for this weekend. Yes. So, I'm gonna go first. My name is Tara. I am the organizer of Ice and FireCon and founder back in 2012 and everything. I am also a writer and have a podcast that I sometimes actually use and sometimes usually don't. It's called The Geek Saga, but it is on iTunes. It's honestly a lot of convention stuff. Honestly, this will probably end up as an episode. So, anyway, we'll go next to
Yeah, my name's Kyle Ross. If you're on Twitter, I'm a crazy Twitter person, so you might know me as KW Dent on Twitter. I also have a podcast that's focused on the Song of Ice and Fire. Right now we are show focused of Game of Thrones. It's called The Blood of the Podcast. So this is my first time at the convention. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But thanks for putting this on, and I've really enjoyed this season so far, so I'm excited to talk about it.
My name is James Ranson. I have been involved in this con a month or 2 less than Tara has. She and I were actually in the same online Ice and Fire community when she came up with the con, and I was like, oh yes, I want to do that in the middle of graduate school, which is another story. I was a mod of that community for a while. I am a 1997 book reader, as I was joking about as some of you guys were coming in. But I've been a volunteer for this con pretty much since it started. I was on small council for a couple of years. And this year I get to be on a panel, which I haven't gotten to do yet, so this will be fun.
Woo! Yeah. I'm Zeus, and I have a podcast called History of Westeros, and this is my 3rd year at Ice and FireCon, and we spent a lot of time covering the TV show and the books on my pod, so right up my alley talking about season 8, so yeah.
Also, if you guys have trouble hearing us, we do have mics. It's just we only have 2 in here right now. We have to set up the other room. So just raise your hand and tell us if you can't hear us very well. But this room's kind of small and it's the first panel of the weekend, so I still have a voice. Talk to me about tomorrow. That won't be the same.
Yep.
Which is why all the musical stuff is pre-recorded.
Nice.
Okay, so
more on that later.
Okay, so first, like I said, we're gonna kind of do a brief recap of season 7. Obviously, where it left off, being Cersei saying she was gonna send her, armies up to fight the Night King and his armies, and as we now know, that's obviously not going to happen. And Dany and Jon were on their way to Winterfell still. But I mean, you had a lot of thoughts on this, kind of more than I did, honestly. Season 7 was, I just rewatched it, and I actually watched it backwards. And I ended up I started on season 7, episode 7, and ended up watching the entire show backwards. It was great. It was like there's a country song that's something about singing a country song backwards. You're you get your dog back, you get your wife back. It was great because it was you get the Starks back and everything. But very odd way to watch the show.
Yeah, I heard people doing that this year actually on purpose, watching the show backwards, or watching the season backwards. I can go into a quick recap of it. Yeah, just to provide context for kind of where we're at moving into season 8. So at the end of season 7, the Dragon and the Wolf in King's Landing, Jon and Dany have a summit with Cersei Lannister and the powers of the South. After having collected a wight from beyond the wall, Jon and Dany plead with Cersei to agree to a truce until the war against the dead is finished. Ultimately, Cersei agrees to the ceasefire, but it is, of course, revealed that, big surprise, Cersei is lying, and she intends to betray the North and will not be sending the Lannister army. To this, Jaime Lannister leaves the capital and heads north, choosing to honor his word and fight for the living. Go Jaime. Can you all hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm a loud person, so.
Yeah, we can hear you back here, so.
Nice. Bar buddies. Yeah. Theon commits himself to save his sister from Euron's clutches after an excellent scene where Jon tells him, "You're a Greyjoy and you're a Stark." And that might come back into play in Jon's struggle with being a Targaryen and a Stark, but more on that later. Littlefinger finally faces the consequences of actions dating back to before the canonical start of the show, as Arya and Sansa finally unite against him.
Which, like, I wanted to touch on that because
Sure.
I understand why they cut the scene where Bran like tells Arya and Sansa what has been going on and like tattles on Littlefinger essentially. Because, I guess it's spoilery and they wanted to keep people on the edge of their seats and everything. But also, I didn't like it. Like, I understand why they did it, but I feel like it was just a bad choice on their part because, sure, it made the whole Littlefinger death a little bit more surprising, but I didn't like that they were doing that whole thing where they're, like, pitting Arya and Sansa against each other, and then it's like, oh, bam, with no explanation, all of a sudden they're everything's fine, they're buddies, and they're killing Littlefinger instead.
That's the whole northern plot of season 7.
Yeah.
Do you think that's happening now, where there's information Bran has that he's already divulged to other characters, but they're holding back us seeing it for like more shock factor? Like, think other folks in Winterfell know.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I think that's kind of their shtick, honestly, is withholding what is kind of obvious information, and it's, I don't know, it makes Bran just literally like nothing more than a plot device right now, which is kind of sad.
I
But
think there's a little more to him because he has some motivation for his very odd timing of when he wanted Sam to tell Jon about his birth. Something's up with that. Like the timing was really conspicuous. It was like, now's the time. Now that you're pissed off, something is up with that. Like that, we don't know why exactly, but it's not. It's not random. It's not.
It was kind of off.
What's that?
It was kind of off.
Yeah. So something. It's
You're like,
certainly they
why
have an
now?
intent with
Why
that.
now?
I don't know what it is, but
Did you cover that on your live
Because
stream
of the
with
Nights-
Radio
I guess-
Westeros?
Yeah.
I guess he was saying because the Nights King and
I think like one idea that I like because it's thematically coherent and applies to things we've seen in the past is that whole love is the death of duty concept. And if Jon is concerned for Dany's life during the battle, he may not do the things he needs to do, and possibly vice versa. But it could be that he's like, no, Jon needs to be willing to be focused and not think about this person he loves. It might be something which is fine. It might be that simple, but that would be a fine enough reason. But it could be more to it than that. I don't know. But I agree that he's mostly been that. But there's this one thing that I think is, and maybe the conversation with Tyrion, I think there's some hope for Bran being a little more interesting.
I mean, he is interesting in that sort of creeper watching from the corner sort of way.
Yeah. The whole line about human memory being extinct, that was really neat. Like, I thought that was cool.
Pay no attention to the brand behind the curtain.
Yeah, and you can see how that would apply to the books because you have basically everything they're doing with Night King in the show is book you're on.
Yeah.
He's the guy who's going to take down the wall, the guy that's trying to blow everything up. And then the human memory thing I think is really cool because it applies to the books there where you're about to like take out Old Town or something.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's where all the
it's a
human
great
memory books are.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty cool crossover concept, I think.
Yeah, I think the issue with Bran often is so what are the extent of his powers? He kind of talked about in the recent episode where he says we don't know because no one's seen it before, basically.
Yeah.
But we also see where he is unaware of the fact that Rhaegar and Lyanna were wed, right? Sam has to tell him this. So it is interesting to say like where does it stop for Bran? Now we have some context of like it's if it was if it was seen by the werewoods or he has seen it yet. It's kind of fuzzy still, but yeah, as far as from a plot device, it is difficult because there are so many situations where you're like, just ask Bran.
Yeah.
So like, there's definitely a like
Ask
level of
Bran.
suspension of disbelief. Yeah, it's like,
Oh
ask
my
Jesus.
gosh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Somebody
I'm glad
somebody
you're
needs to
that.
register if it isn't already registered and askbrand.com like for Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones fans.
Yeah,
Like,
that'd be epic.
please, it's like it's a few
Somebody-
bucks. It's a few bucks to register at .com.
The
Somebody
Search of
do
Ice
it.
and Fire should just rename itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. That's
You
brilliant.
you raised your hand a second ago. Do you have a
back
question?
to the Littlefinger thing.
Sure.
Is anyone else mad that Sansa sentenced him to death but did not
A little.
didn't like swing the sword? That bothered me a lot.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't bother me so much because I felt like it was probably like she's the one who spoke the words, but I have to imagine that she and Arya and probably or possibly Bran were involved in the conversation where they all decided that he needed to die. And for all we know, again, because I don't know that whatever happened in that scene that they erased or that they cut or whatever. For all we know, like Arya was the one who said he has to die, which is very, very much more her character than it is Sansa's for the most part.
Sansa was like the Lady of Winterfell at the time. Though.
Yeah. So for me, like, I get what you're saying, especially with Ned Stark being their father, the man who passes a sentence should swing the sword. But I think that they all three were passing that sentence, even though she said the words. And is the Lady of Winterfell. I can't imagine that it was Sansa and only Sansa who came to that decision all on her own.
I also think it parallels how Littlefinger often acted, getting other people to achieve his ends for him. So it gave it gave Sansa a sense of power in playing his game better than he did. And I thought that felt apt to me. But I see where you're coming from that. What were you say, Jonathan?
Well, I don't even remember her passing a sentence. It was just continuing accusations, and he said, well, I did this, it's like, and you still betrayed me, and you still betrayed me, and then Arya just killed him. I don't remember a sentence actually being passed.
She does ask, how do you answer for these crimes? And the answer is,
let me talk to you, and then...
Yeah. So yeah, she doesn't say like, I, Sansa Stark, Lady of Winterfell, Warden of the North, or whatever, sentence you to die. Yeah, it did actually bother. I mean, I do agree with you. Yeah, for the show, I also kind of have to think like, what would it look like if Sophie Turner like went out and slit his throat? Like the mechanics for that are kind of like hard in my head.
It's not really in keeping.
Yeah, it would be a little weird, but yes, when I watched it the first time, I was a little like, that kind of bugs me. Yeah, but so yeah, definitely a great question.
Cool. Well, and real quick, while we've already kind of touched on like the Jon and being a Targaryen thing, but you had some notes on Gilly finding those records in season 7.
Yeah, so we'll move forward because we're on season 7 still.
Yeah.
Season 8's got out, guys. No.
When does that start?
Any minute.
I'm not sure. Yeah, but Gilly finds the documents of record, which have kind of like they haven't brought it up in the show still that like Gilly was the one. But anyway, Gilly finds a document of record at the Citadel affirming that Rhaegar was annulled from his wife Elia and married to Lyanna Stark in secret. Not only is Jon the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna, but he is the true-born heir to the Iron Throne. Jon and Dany consummate their alliance aboard a ship heading for the north, drawing massive implications and complications for their futures.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly though, like, I know it's supposed to bother us, but listen, like, we know the Targaryens, married their brothers, like brothers and sisters were marrying each other forever.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've had the whole like Cersei and Jaime thing going on for all this time. Like, the whole like aunt and nephew thing. It's I guess maybe it's supposed to bother us, but it's kind of like, I mean, that's really not any worse than first cousins. Like,
is it weird when you're out with like normal people and you have to be like, actually, this is really normal?
I mean, like, listen.
I'm more just like, I just won't bring it up.
Incest is bad, and it's not okay. And in real life, like, nobody should be okay with it. But like, we've seen twin brother and sister. Having carnal relations. So the idea of like an aunt and a nephew, like I said, it's not really any worse than first cousin. They're the same-ish age.
We have twin Targaryens wed in the past as well. So like aunt and nephew is not really that weird.
It's funny because the actors behind the scenes were asked about it, and they were like, ew. Like both Kit Harington and Amelia, and I'm like, yeah, but y'all are hot. You guys aren't really doing it. So enjoy it.
It's a good question about that actually. Has the show brought up to any great degree the fact that Targaryens used to wed brother and sister all the time?
Danny was
Cersei flat out said it.
Yeah.
Targaryens wed brother and
for
sister for
hundreds of years.
generations.
Okay.
We can go ahead.
I feel like that might have been something that that shows up so much more in the books, and then the show mentioned it maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
So.
They also
I would agree.
do not mention that Daenerys' parents were brother and sister.
Yeah.
Like, that never gets mentioned in the show.
Yeah, that's
Good point.
I don't actually know that it ever does get mentioned in the show. I don't think so.
No,
Yeah.
not that I can remember.
She's clearly less stunned by that part of it. Sean is one bothered by it.
Yeah.
He's the one because he's like
That
he
look
doesn't-
on his face
He doesn't
was
care
kind
about.
of
He's like
priceless.
he's like the clay and stuff. He's like, oh, I don't care about that. I care that I'm banging my hands. That's what I care about.
I
And
heard
she's-
from Brian
yeah.
Cogman that the look, because that look's been like argued all week, right?
Yeah.
But and I think it was Brian Cogman who said the look was supposed to be about Danny's, or John was surprised that Danny's first thought was the throne.
Yeah.
So he was like upset.
So he was concerned about the incest, and then
Yeah.
I have some things.
I'm
to
sure
say
he was
about
also
that.
yeah, it's
concerned
like
about
the back and
the
forth
incest.
of
I mean,
being
there's
taken
no
aback
doubt.
by what they're upset about. Yeah.
I've got some things to say about that once we get to that episode.
Yeah. Do we want to? Let's move through the rest of.
Yeah. One other thing, they wrote that line also because they still, and it's true, they still think, outside, non-obsessed fans still don't get the claim situation. So they had to be very clear with it there.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
got
and
the
they
big
even say
argument
that
with
afterwards.
somebody
And to drive that point home, Shea was talking to her dad after the episode, and he still didn't get it. So I'm like, okay, so that proves it. And then Sean, our other co-host, talked to his mom, and he was talking her through it. So people still don't get it. So unfortunately, that kind of messes with Danny's character. It makes her more petty. But they kind of had to explain it better. So maybe they could have written it differently. But it was partly just to explain it to the audience. It wasn't just like, well, this is what Danny would do. They're like, well, we got to explain this again.
Yeah, I had a big argument with somebody over that. They were like, well, Danny is Aries' last living child. She has a throne. I'm like, well, that's not how it works.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
unfortunately, this isn't Dorne.
Yeah.
So, John being the eldest living son of Ares' eldest living son means he is his.
Crown Prince of Dragonstone. It's a
And
title.
it's really neat that they ended Jenny's song with that scene because that's a song about a guy who gives up the crown for his
Isn't
wife.
this the parallel relationship to the Dance of the Dragons, essentially?
That too. He has a green dragon, she has black, so it's pretty cool. There's a lot of that. Yeah, a lot of that lines up for sure.
Super duper cool.
Seven.
Go ahead.
Seven. Season 7.
Season 7. Let's finish up season 7. So finally, after
You get to be the person who keeps us on track.
Yeah, honestly,
You have volunteered.
It's very hard. It's very hard when you're talking about like episode by episode stuff to like stay in one place, especially with this show. So.
there's too many good points. People bring up a good point about it. And I'm
You
like,
don't
well,
want to stimulate the conversation.
No, I'm like, I have 15 responses to your point. So, finally, the episode ends with Viserion, the Night King riding Viserion to the wall at Eastwatch by the Sea and taking down Chekhov's wall. The long night is coming, winter is here. Chekhov's wall.
How's it check off?
How's Chekhov?
Ours is the drama.
Yeah, I think that was the end of it. Yeah, that's the end of season 7. So let's move into season 8 because I don't want to recap season 7.
No, that's fine. I had one point that I wanted to just add to this, and everybody knows this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. We already know that how the show is gonna end and how the books are gonna end, assuming they do end, are not going to be the same. We know this. This is thank you, Captain Obvious. And at the same time, I think it's important to note anyway, because for me at least, and for a few people I've talked to, back in season 4 and season 5, when the show and the books were still kind of closer together and starting to diverge, there was a certain amount of irritation, frustration, flat out outrage over some of the things the show was doing. I think at this point in time, the show and the books have diverged sufficiently that we can, to a degree, step back from some of that a little bit and say, okay, this show, it might not be the story we thought we were going to get, and it might not be the story that the books are eventually, hopefully, fingers crossed, going to give us, but it is a story we actually want to see the ending of now. And so there may be room for those of us who were struggling with said frustration and outrage to maybe give the show a little bit more benefit of the doubt than we did last year, year before that.
Oh, I had to reach a zen point. I think it was sometime during season 5. It might have been that awful sand snake fight, or who knows. It was like after that episode, I had to reach a zen point.
It was just Dorne.
Yeah.
It was just fucking Dorne.
I had to reach a zen point where it's like I have to be able to separate these in my mind, or I'm never going to be able to enjoy watching this show. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was.
Well, there is a lot to appreciate. Even the really bad scenes have good acting a lot of times.
Yeah.
And they do have, obviously, we just got one of the best moments they've ever had with this last episode. So it's nice we're arriving at this particular high point.
Yeah.
So all right, well that brings us to season 8 finally. It's fine, we got
It took us 20
around
minutes.
20 minutes.
There was some season 8
Total
talk during
context.
season
Yeah, a little
7.
bit.
So the first episode, what was it called? The first episode was called Witch Bells. What was this past weekend's episode?
Night of
Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
Thank you, because I like they aren't putting the episode names out, which is
Yeah.
a new thing for them. So it just said like episode 69, which
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
after 420.
It was good that they didn't. It was good that they didn't reveal this one because that
Yes.
was nice. Yeah, that would have been a spoiler.
Yeah.
Do you know how wrecked
So
I was?
hopefully there's more spoilers for the future titles. They also
Yeah,
have like a
yeah.
cool like, oh, that one was called, I don't know,
I kinda
A
like
Long
it.
Night or something.
But,
I kind of like the episode titles coming out. Like this week
Yeah.
after,
Yeah, I do too.
I was like a wreck after this week's episode. It was
Yeah.
so good, and then like the episode title comes out and it's Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and I was like,
I'm glad I didn't know that.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, yeah. And maybe that's kind of why I
Yeah.
imagine the episodes
I
coming.
hope
out.
so.
I just want to know how they've kept them all a secret. Like,
Yeah, that is
really.
Yeah, seriously. They have to go. They seriously have to deal with like drones trying to steal shots from them.
Yeah,
It's
that's
incredible.
make it up
that day.
Security. It's like a whole new.
Yeah, make it up that day. Yeah, it's just D&D. They're like, as the episode's ending, what should we call this?
Yeah. Like, don't tell anyone.
But yeah, so the season premiere was, I mean, it was a pretty good episode. I wasn't like overly like overwhelmed one way or the other about it, but I did like the a lot of reunions.
All the reunions
Yeah,
ever.
I'm still mad that we haven't had a Sansa Sandor like
Yeah,
one-on-one
I am too.
reunion.
Yeah,
Like
it's
I will be
ridiculous.
care mad about that forever until it happens. So.
I expect them both to live, so I think that's maybe why they had to pack in so many reunions. They're
Yeah,
like, well, we
yeah.
gotta save Sandor for Clegane Bowl, so we'll let them have their moment later when we have time.
Oh, I keep forgetting about.
Right.
How did you guys rate the episode? You think like on a 1 to 10 scale? Because this is something we put out a survey every
The
week. for
first one?
Podcast. Yeah, the first one.
Maybe a 7 or 7.5.
Yeah.
Seven.
Yeah.
Maybe an 8. Like I don't know.
Like-
It has a lot of character moments, which is what I'm hoping for the most. So
Yeah.
it was cool. It was pretty good.
I thought it was good too. I had like a 7 myself, and that's
Yeah.
not bad. Like people are like 7 is average. I'm like, no, 5 is average. Or the American grading scale system is fucked up what we think is average. But so yeah, I thought it was good. I was like, there's been a lot of episodes of Game of Thrones where I'm not happy at the end of it. Like I had lots of issues. I didn't have that after the end of episode 1. I was like, met my expectations. I knew we had to get everybody back. Like people have to get to Winterfell before it's like we knew this was what was going to happen. Yeah. So
I mean, I'd give it like a 6, but I'd give it like an 8 for being like in the unintentionally hilarious category. Or maybe they were trying to be hilarious because like the Drogon watching Dany and Jon
That was
was
fun.
like it was like over the top but also great. And the elephant stuff, y'all. Like
Yeah.
I was so mad about
Thank you.
elephants.
She spoke for us all.
That was the one thing I was like, we're gonna get Golden Company elephants. This is gonna be fantastic.
And if you just take that idea farther, you're like, do we get undead elephants? Blue-eyed.
Now you don't.
elephants?
Now you
Come
don't.
on.
Well, I was
But that's
anticipating
tough skin,
elephants,
too.
the
They'd be
mammoths versus
impossible
the
to
elephants.
kill.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
elephants versus
and I
mammoths.
get it. Like honestly, there are things that happen in the books that it's things like the helmets that they wear, the helms that they wear
Or the
in the
lack of
books
helmets.
are just absolutely obnoxious.
Yeah.
Like, your head, you wouldn't even be able to raise your head with some of the helmets that Martin describes.
Yeah.
I mean,
You
they're beautiful, but they're nonsense. Let's be real.
Go from the ridiculous.
And that's kind of how the elephants are. They're it would be really cool to see them, but it's not like they're right. How the hell would they get them over there on these boats? Like they're worried about horses crossing the narrow sea. Like elephants? Do you know how much elephants weigh? Would the boat still float? I don't like. They're still sort of like.
This is true, but they set up. They mentioned the damn elephants in season 7, which means that they literally wrote in the plot of the elephants just to make fun of in season 8 that their budget couldn't support it. Like,
Yeah.
Again, unintentional.
Which we should have seen.
Or maybe it wasn't unintentional.
Maybe they
It's hard to
just-
tell with this show sometimes.
Maybe they just knew the live action Dumbo was coming out.
We can't compete with that.
I tweeted this out, it was funny. All week my girlfriend bugs me about going to see Dumbo, right? She's like, let's go see Dumbo. I'm like, I don't want to go see Dumbo. We don't go see it. And then on that Sunday, we got no elephants. So I was
But we did get a meme of
Yeah.
Cersei riding Dumbo.
We
so.
did. We shouldn't have been surprised there were no elephants because like they've had issues budgeting for ghosts. So like, how the fuck were they gonna like budget in elephants? But anyway.
Yeah, Cersei definitely needs to mount an elephant and like have it run like off that platform overlooking the sea, slow mo, lands on silence, and she just like tramples urine on it. And
Yeah.
Fits right in, I think.
So some other things from season 8, I guess I'll jump into like a kind of hot button issue. John riding a dragon. Did it meet your? So first off, I guess just real quick, our episode expectation that we got back was a 6.8 from people. Still waiting on the final numbers for episode 2. 6.8 I thought was fair, but John riding a dragon, did it like?
It would have been good if it had been 45 seconds.
Well, to me, it's like it didn't. Yes, I agree. It would have been good if it was like 45 seconds and not like that whole like how to train your dragon nonsense.
Yeah.
Balance it to his, before he gets on the dragon, they spent all this time with him riding it like it was a ride or something, but somebody should have more trepidation about mounting a dragon. That's like a big thing.
Well,
and
that
I mean, they should talk about it afterwards.
Targaryens
No one
did
said a
it.
word after.
Yeah,
No one's been like, that was weird, John. How did you do that?
What was that like?
How did Danny know that you could ride a dragon? But
Yeah.
she didn't know he
No,
was a
that's cool.
Targaryen.
Yeah.
Because, like,
It's like you couldn't
They
ride
don't.
the
They just don't
dragon.
care about that in the show. They're
Yeah.
not doing
It's
any
like,
Targaryen.
it's like you couldn't ride the dragon because I said so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because mommy's
I don't
here,
think that's
dragon will
how it
behave. 'cause-
works.
I know.
And I think she has to know that's not how it works. Like, she saw these dragons, like, attack people, you know,
Yeah.
in Essos constantly. Like,
They broke out of their brick cell when she needed
Yeah.
them to, so she clearly has some sort of telepathic.
What was
yeah.
it? Was it John?
Yeah. I say it a bunch, but like I always thought the coolest thing they could have done was in the season 7 scene when they're all on Little Island.
Yeah.
If Rhaegal, against Dany's wishes, went back for John when he goes in the water, and he.
Oh, that would have been
I
cool.
love that.
That would have been the most epic.
Oh, yeah.
Because then he gets off, and
Yeah, when
Danny's
he
like,
lied,
how
I was
would
like,
you do
oh,
that?
this is gonna be so epic, and then it
That would have been
happened.
cool.
Totally agree.
Way better than the season.
And then instead, Benjen rides
Dragon
with his
chooses
little
him.
chain.
Come on. You know, it's interesting too that we're getting these Targaryen issues riding a dragon, but like, and we just got Fire and Blood, right? And there's a whole section in Fire and Blood that deals with this issue of like, do you need Targaryen blood? How much Targaryen blood do you need? Like, so it's funny that like the show hand-waves that, and George's writing is literally writing the groundwork for
making it very meaningful.
Yeah. So.
yeah, I mean, it's never, I think it's been, is it, Sons of the Dragon? What was the novella?
Yeah, that's right.
Rogue Prince or
Rogue
Prince
Prince.
of
The one where it's the Black and Green where they went out and tried to find people with
Oh yeah,
Targaryen blood
that was
to
first
ride.
Prince of the Queen. But
Yeah. It was, there's because a couple of them follow kind of the same storyline, and I always get them mixed up. But,
Sowing of the Seeds or something, I think is what they call the event. I don't know.
but yeah, they have to go out and find people with Targaryen blood to ride these wild dragons, and it's like this is, and I believe it has to have been mentioned in the show. It probably not since like maybe Viserys or whatever, but Dany has to know, or at least I assumed that she did. So like when Jon rode the dragon, and then especially after that when she kind of is poo-pooing the idea that he's a Targaryen, it's like, but you just saw him ride a dragon.
What if she would have responded more like if she took a step back and was like, the dragons always took a liking to you. I should have. I don't know, something more like.
Yeah.
They didn't do the brown Ben Plum scene in the
Right.
show, which would have been, which
they
we still
could've-
expect that to happen in the books to,
Yeah.
close that circle or whatever.
Yeah.
But,
Oh, and speaking of Brown Ben Plum, just because that reminds me of Dario, like I was really expecting Dario to be with the Golden Company. Like where did Dario go? He can't still just be chilling in Marine like
He asked him to rule, which is a strange job.
And
for
he
him.
was upset about it. He was pissed about it. So I really
he's
thought
there.
that he was
He's
gonna
with them for sure.
come
He's
back.
there.
Like when they talked about the Golden Company coming over, I really thought he was going to be part of that, like to fight against her.
Yeah.
Like,
Maybe he'll
a
show up.
betrayal,
Maybe he'll show up with
that's her
Melisandre.
betrayal for love or whatever.
We've got the Golden Company up there. I feel like they're setting us up for having a big battle now and a big battle at King's Landing,
Yeah.
or maybe in between, and that's where the Golden Company's going to be involved, and maybe he'll show up then.
Yeah. I have a good question to jump off of that. Yeah, because right now I think there are two main-ish, maybe I'm jumping ahead, but it's a good place for it. Main-ish theories as to the Golden Company. Are the Golden Company heading north next episode? Or is there going to be a two-front battle? And this is what I know, Aziz, you've been posting about it as well. Is the Night King heading for King's Landing, and the Golden Company is going to become ostensibly a part of their army?
Right.
I mean,
Two
it was-
main thoughts right now.
not real quick, like not seeing Viserion makes sense for budget reasons,
It does,
obviously,
yeah.
but it was very conspicuous that there was no sign of the Night King as part of that army. That's
It makes a lot of sense. It's just kind of, it's hard to, it's easily something they wouldn't do because they just kind of want to, they might want to be like, nah, we want the viewers to get Night King in this battle and see him in action. But it does also make a ton of sense for him to just skip by and attack anywhere else because it's the only, literally the most prepared to meet him right now.
Yeah.
Attack anywhere else where they can't possibly touch him.
And if he, as Bran says, knows where Bran is at all times.
Yeah, he can just get him later.
Yeah, it's like he's just gonna sit there. It's not like he can leave.
Yeah, it's easier to kill Bran
So
after
throw
you take 1,000,000 souls from
zombies
King's
at
Landing.
everyone defending Bran, and then come back when they're all dead.
Yeah.
And of course you have this scene of a dragon flying over King's Landing that we haven't gotten yet, which would make there's only 4 episodes left, so they're either forgetting about it or it's coming in one of those episodes.
Yeah,
It could be either, I guess.
We'll see. It fits really well for the books because we know that we have the idea that Euron may get a dragon, and we have again the Dance of the Dragons parallels a lot of what's happening in the books and the show. Particularly, Aemond One Eye is a parallel to Euron. He's got one blue eye and all that, and flying a dragon around. And he splits off from Crispin Cole during the Dance of the Dragons. They kind of can't agree on how to handle the army, so he just flies up on his own and just ravages the Riverlands, which really sounds like something Euron could do. Just blow everything up until people submit, which is what Aemon was trying to do. And then, you know, there's a confrontation in Harrenhal. Because it seems like Harrenhal is more likely the spot where all this goes down in the books rather than Winterfell. Because we have to have a long series of starvation and death and horror before we get to some sort of final battle, instead of just boom, you know, let's all meet up in North and fight the Night King.
And the God's Eye has been set up for a long time.
Yeah.
Something
It would make sense that everyone could pile into Harrenhal. It's so huge. It's like almost like written for that purpose.
It's almost like Chekhov's Harrenhal.
And it's right by a God's Eye, and it's like in the center where logistically everyone could get to. The show doesn't care about logistics as much, or hardly at all. But.
Yeah, it's hard because sometimes there are these plot devices we still have. Like there's a very popular theory that like of course the Trident is a likely spot in the books and maybe still in the show that like this major battle could finish at. But like you never know if you're like the show's setting up to have that happen or they're just gonna forget about it. You know, like you never know.
See, that's why we think Winterfell and King's Landing, those are the places people are familiar with.
Which is
the Trident's just hardly a thing for show watchers.
Yeah, that would be like what's
the Trident? Where's that again?
The opening credits scene that we buried the lead on. We got the new opening credits scene this year. Oh yeah, so you have
cool.
Sorry.
Do you guys think that show John would send people to arm Mo Kalen against the Golden Company?
He probably should have. Sansa probably should have. She was the one worried about Cersei. They could have sent. I mean, I know they need every man they can get, which John says, but
That's what I was
you
thinking.
send
Override it.
100 dudes, 100 archers down to Mo Kalen, and you're pretty well defended.
Seems like a good idea.
But I guess they were legitimately fooled. I mean, maybe they could say, well, let's now send. Like that's maybe things that happened in episode 2. Once they realized, Jaime's like, yeah, she's not sending troops. Okay, let's get something down to Mo Kalen.
And then they hit a white harbor and you screw now.
That would make sense, but
Because they do have ships, but yeah.
They do have ships. White harbor.
They do.
But what?
let's go straight for White Harbor.
Just Winterfell.
That's a great point about Mo Kalen. Because that is Mo Kalen's such a. We shouldn't get into freaking Mo Kalen, but it is so interesting. The North's been isolated for so long. Or it's been a separate kingdom geographically and politically and culturally, largely because of like what Mo Kalen stands for militarily. I suppose. Yeah.
But in the show, they just go around.
And they could always land at White Harbor or whatever, but anyway, the opening credit scene we'll have to because we haven't even talked about the best episode of Game of Thrones ever yet, but
I just want to say I really enjoyed the opening credits.
Yeah, me too.
The changes that they made to like the just starting in a different place, tracing the path of the army of the dead, having Winterfell and King's Landing be so much more built up. Like everything about that was awesome. Like even if
map floor.
Even if like the rest of the episode was a 6, the opening credits were like an 11. I really loved it.
And they said they did that totally from scratch too. Yeah, they didn't.
That was crazy. Yeah, I thought it was a total.
What's on the turning? What, there were 3
Oh yeah, there's like there's the Mother of Dragon scene. There's a red wedding scene. There's a one more.
Oh, are those
Field
the
of
3
Fire
they wanted
Part
to do?
2?
Is that what that is?
I think so.
It's
Part 2. Yeah.
What was the last one?
I forgot.
The baggage train.
Oh, the wall coming down. Yeah, Viserion bringing down the wall. Yeah.
So, and I don't remember where I heard this. I heard this somewhere else, but it is this really cool take where the the previous Astrolabe was like Robert's Rebellion and the songs of the past, basically from before the show, and now we get one that is the songs of like our characters now, right? Like that we lived through. So it's this cool, different take on like what we're watching is now history, right?
Getting super self-referential.
Yeah, but they're beautiful. I love that they
Yeah.
go like inside the buildings now and everything.
So before it showed Doom of Valeria, and it showed Robert's Rebellion, and it showed Robert being crowned.
Yes.
And now what it's doing is it's showing the wall, and it goes backwards
Huh.
to the Red Wedding, and then it goes backwards.
Birth of the Dragon.
to-
Oh, that's cool.
That's interesting, yeah.
And they're saying, I forget which video it was that said that it's probably hinting at
Time being a wheel.
being a wheel and
Huh.
being
Well, that's
And
part of
then
the
Captain
aspect
Marvel
of
is
the
going
big
to show
song.
up.
That's part of the concept of the big song. Like, not only does history repeat itself, but so do songs. Like, you have a chorus that repeats and
Right,
motifs and things like that. So that's cool.
Roger Computer would be pleased.
He would. Well written.
So we're down to about 15 minutes left. So I
Let's
think
jump
we should
into
jump
episode
into
two.
Gush
episode
about it.
two.
Let's do it.
We all
So-
wanna do
so
episode
good.
two.
Let's gush, yeah.
I guess I'll just jump in and say right away, like this episode to me was, I was surprised because I wrote in here it's totally paceless, right? There's no pacing to the episode, which is a weird thing to say as a compliment, but like
They made it work?
it works because we've been following these characters for so many years. We're at a convention about these damn characters, talking about them, and this hour of TV was like the inevitability of the battle that's coming in episode 3, and they just let us kind of sit in it for an hour, and we got to see our characters sit in it as well. We were experiencing waiting for the battle the same way that they were. We were as much a part of this episode as any episode of Game of Thrones we ever have been.
Yeah.
And that's not even to include the fact that the writing in the episode was much better than any Game of Thrones episodes we've gotten in a long time, in my opinion, of course. And if you disagree, that's totally fine. Like, I've seen people that don't like it, but yeah, for me, I was blown away when the episode was over. I mean, I thought it was great. So.
There were like 3 things in that episode that I thought I was gonna hate when they started. By the time they finished, it's like that was the coolest thing ever, including the entirety of the fireside chat. I was like, what? I was seriously, when more people started coming in and sit down, I was like, really? Is this really what y'all are gonna do? And then by the time Podrick finishes singing, I'm like, oh my god, that was so cool. I was like, all right, well done.
I was definitely on that level. I was like, this is kind of like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. Is this a little boring? But then like it really did all come together in the end, like really well. So
Yeah. It was like something you can't do in most shows, not just because of their huge budget, but because you can't like have a bunch of tearful reunions in season 3. You can't even do that in season 4 or 5. You got to have a long time. Like, these are characters that in real life are like 8 years older, 9 years older, and that's pretty meaningful. And they look different, and they've actually grown and changed, and nearly every single character has gone through a huge transformation. That's what the episode is about, them all dancing with their ghosts, right? Thinking about Tywin and Ramsay and who they used to be, and all talking about how they changed. Yeah, and so we get to like kind of be, like you said, we're kind of part of that. We all kind of makes us think about like, where were we 8 years ago?
Yeah, that's what
I have to think about that.
Yeah, and then like you said, that it connected so many things. The song connects like John and Danny's plot. It connects what everyone's doing, reliving their own lives, and it gives us this awesome piece of Song of Ice and Fire history that we really never, ever even would have dreamed of getting in the show.
yeah, I mean, this is only the 3rd time, right, that they've actually given us a song from the books, with lyrics, and it's only is it the first time that we haven't, because we never have Jenny Oldstone's
One
lyrics.
line. We get one line.
Okay,
Just
right,
that first
right,
line.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, in Rings of Castamere, we get most of
Yeah, we get all.
And
Hands of Gold, we got a good.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And Pod crushes it.
He crushed
Yeah,
it.
good
I
lord.
Yeah.
Westeros title.
I love the.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of you have seen that's what he did to not pay
Yeah.
for. Yeah, it's not pay for his prostitutes.
We have a friend who's a sex worker that said that. She was like, that makes sense. They wouldn't give the money back, but they would tip for good service.
Yeah, I swear, like that'll never be confirmed in the show or anything, but like in headcanon, like that's canon. Can we all
It's
agree?
another. They closed big loops and small.
Yeah.
Well,
That makes so much sense.
I really love the meme that was comparing Pippin's song from Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings to this. Like like the sad song right before everybody's about to die. It makes me wonder if they like did that on purpose. Like, I mean, you have to imagine they know Lord of the Rings. Like, if they've read Game of Thrones, they know Lord of the Rings.
Well, yeah, but there was an elephant in Lord of the Rings.
They explicitly said, Miguel Sapochnik explicitly said that he studied Helen Pete.
Yeah, he did.
For episode 3, directing episode 3. So yeah, there's probably some more.
Yeah,
Rings
probably some overlap.
This is
I never watched the extra stuff, so it's like.
this is the song that Rhaegar sang to Lyanna, right? Is that
Probably.
canon now?
It's a very strong theory.
It's a very strong
but
theory.
it's not 100%. But
It's not 100%,
He's
yeah,
so connected to that song.
It's a definite maybe.
That it's like, and there's not even another hint. It's either a song we haven't heard of or it's that. So it's like,
It
why
makes
not
so much more
pick
sense that it's that song, yeah. There's a great theory, the first place I saw it was Cantus, that Rhaegar wrote the song at Summerhall before he goes to High Heart. It's a theory I really like.
It's great, yeah. And he writes music, and he's like affected by Summerhall, and she would probably go to the ruins.
Yeah, she asked specifically for the song. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, but yeah, right. Yeah, so it makes a ton of sense. But yeah, and I always like people. I've heard the argument that like doesn't fit Lyanna Stark's character to cry at a song, right? Like until you hear Jenny's song,
it's like no, everyone cries. And then she punches her brother anyway, so it's still like she still got
also,
that.
I mean, that's not correct.
I agree.
Like,
It's silly.
you,
No,
I don't know about anybody else, but like me, like you wouldn't think I'm the type of person that would do that, but I will bawl my eyes out for this song. Like, you know, you can be a tough ass person, but that doesn't mean that you don't have feelings and emotions.
Oh, for sure. I agree. I've just heard the argument.
And also, she was like 16 or 15, you know?
Yeah. So, but let's see what else. There's so much about this episode.
I know.
The top rated one in our results. The poll's not done, but I can already tell you. And of course, it's Sir Brienne was the top moment rated.
Yes.
And that moment has so much history in it too, because you have the son of you have their swords, right? Ice. You have their descendants. You have Duncan the Tall is the descendant of or ancestor of Brienne, and Rohan Weber is the ancestor of Jaime. So they're like,
I didn't think about it.
And they're both Kingslayers. She killed Stannis in the show, which isn't a book thing, but like, oh yeah, they're both Kingslayers.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just like,
I mean,
it's a song. It's a harmonious like everything.
The resonance is
can't say enough about it.
unbelievable. And you mentioned like the swords. You've got half of the sword being put out to go save Sansa and Arya, and then the other half being used to knight her after she completed her vows by the person who agreed to the vows with Catelyn Stark. Like it's like in the place that they came from in Winterfell. The resonance is like unbelievably deep.
And I know that they're not releasing the titles, but like
Yeah.
if they had released the title before it started, the first thing you would have thought of was Jaime, because they ended the first episode with Jaime, and they were going to start with his trial in the beginning of the 7th episode. So I was saying, now it's Jaime, but then they released it after the episode. Everybody's thinking of Brienne.
yeah, absolutely.
And of course, they crushed it with the acting too. Just
Oh, Brienne's like grin afterwards.
Yeah, it's like that's exactly the right smile. That's a person who's not used to smiling.
Yeah.
Exactly what she's supposed to do there.
And it's the Mark for Death smile.
It's the what?
Mark for Death smile.
Yeah, it's
and you're
true.
probably right. I actually
I don't
subscribe
wanna
to
be
that.
right.
The tragedy in that moment is also.
I loved, and Emmett Booth said this on his not a cast this week, but I agree that having people there to literally get up and clap, because like that's what I was doing on my couch. I mean, you literally are getting up and clapping at this moment, and the people in this room are so affected by it that they're getting up and clapping at this, like which is not, I don't know, like talking custom, but it's weird in Westeros for this sort of thing to happen.
And Tormund starts and they all follow up, and that's part of what makes it great too, is that the moment is so organic the way they do it. They have Tyrion just accidentally say Sir Brienne. He's like, oh, sorry, Lady Brienne. Tormund's like, well, what the hell's that all about? And it's like Tormund has one of his best moments. He's like, I mean, he has plenty of them, but you know, just his like, that doesn't make any sense. She should be a knight. Like in his mind, a knight is a fighter, and it's like, hello, like what is more obvious? Like, so you're like, yes. What tradition? Or at least that tradition.
Tormund's story, I agree, but Tormund's story, that's a book story, right?
It's both of his stories mingled. It's this bear story and his giant story crossed up. Yeah, the law of conservation of origin stories.
It was good though. They did a good job.
Yeah, I thought they did.
Goes down well with fermented milk.
Whatever that is drinking.
Well, we've got maybe like 10-ish at most minutes left.
Talk
so
about the Arya scene.
I'm sorry.
Let's hear what people thought about Arya.
Okay, the Arya thing. I'm sorry, made me totally uncomfortable.
Did it?
Like, it's just not. Yeah, like And I think a lot of it is that there was a question as to how old the character actually is, because apparently she has aged way more than anybody else in the show. Like, it's been like 3 or 4 years for everybody else.
Way
It's
more
been like
than
8
Sam,
for
yeah.
Arya. It's
Even
fine.
maybe logically that it just made me uncomfortable. I didn't even think that far. It made me uncomfortable because you've grown attached to Arya as a younger character.
Yes.
And if you
Yes.
have kids, it just felt weird.
Yeah.
And it felt forced, and I don't think her character came far enough to be thinking about something like that.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of it, like, I kept telling myself, oh, it's just because I watched her, like, I've been watching her as a little girl, and I watched her grow up on the show, and I get that she's, like, kind of technically an adult now, but, like, she was a little kid for so much of it,
Yeah.
despite what she's been through and everything. But yeah, on top of that, I also disagree with that as a character choice for her, because I feel like, if anything at this point, Arya would be like, I just can't imagine her, that would be the thing she wants is sex.
Right.
Like,
Or
really?
intimacy. They were trying to like.
It would be
force
tough
an
for her to
emotional,
touch someone,
intimate
I
moment.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe if they had like if they kissed or if they had some kind of other moment and
Yeah.
she moved
Yeah.
closer toward that, like a relationship like that, that would be.
I guess they just didn't have time for it, but yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Like she associates touch with killing. Everything is about.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't disagree on any particular point there. I appreciate the effort to move Arya back into a more human place.
Yeah, and they gave her agency, which is
Yeah.
cool.
Which,
Like, it
yeah,
was her
and it was
moment.
her moment, her
Yeah.
choice.
I'm just
I-
saying I have some
yeah.
counterpoints.
I appreciate, I appreciated all of that. I wasn't the best character choice for her. I don't know that I could say that, but I appreciate at least the effort to be like, she is no longer only the cold face of death person and only that. I
Maybe
appreciate
it wasn't
that.
earned, but I agree with you. Like they needed to do that, and also like it's you can appreciate her the agency and all that. You can also be like, well, you know that it's a male director and male writers. You can like, you'd be like, whoa, how are they going to handle this? Like the second you started, I'm like, whoa, are they going to screw this up? Because
And
you know
what
they're
those
not.
male directors and
That was
writers
part of
have
my
done in the
discomfort.
past 7
Yeah.
seasons.
So I wasn't discomfort with the scene, but the way that I was like, whoa, hold on, are they going to do this right?
Shit.
And then it wasn't that, it wasn't bad.
No,
it just wasn't great.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
So if we're creeped out by it, how do you think Joe Dempsey felt?
He's
He's known her since she was 10.
I know.
Yeah. Well, no, she was like 15 when the show started.
But still,
She's
young.
22 now. Yeah, no, that's young. That's definitely young, but it's,
Well, she was 20 when
if she
they
was
filmed
10,
it.
then that would be a lot worse.
Yeah, turns out it was 20.
Yeah.
She's 20 when they filmed it. she
So
said, yeah.
I agree with, because like when the scene came on, like because Arya is one of my favorite characters in the book. She's the top point of view character for me. So I was definitely a little like weary about it, and I agree with all the points everybody brought up, but. And I guess one more counterpoint against my point is that, like, anytime in Hollywood, you're always concerned about how Hollywood is treating females in these sort of scenes, because it is such an issue. It really, I mean, it truthfully just is. But from Arya, like, I don't have as much of an issue from a character standpoint because she does feel this is her last night on Earth, and I agree from a humanity standpoint. Arya was so detached, and we criticized her for being detached from humanity for a long time, and so it's nice that she gets to be reattached to humanity, and she does make this decision to experience something she hasn't ever before she maybe dies, which I kind of think Arya, either way, she knows she's in a massive line of danger. And the Gendry Arya thing, like, it's one argument that it is actually really hinted at.
In the books too, yeah.
In the
Oh, yeah,
books,
she was
too.
smoldering.
If there's anyone who could step into that role, it would be her.
Yeah, so like I saw some people who were like, this wasn't even foreshadowed, and I'm like, yes, it is.
Yeah, it was. Oh yeah, she even like you said, in the books, she ogles him in the books. Yeah. She's like a little girl, but she also, she trusts him.
Yeah.
Like,
which is maybe the most important
she
part,
gets
yeah.
angry with him, for joining the Brotherhood and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
she still
Feels betrayed.
Basically,
she's
it's
one of the
her
very-
first crush, probably.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
very few
very much
people
so.
that she trusts. So like,
Yeah.
there are parts of it that make sense. I just can't get beyond
Oh,
like
which I totally.
the
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
about face of like Arya being, like what
Yeah.
she is and
Yeah.
like basically a killing machine, and then all of a sudden like, but
Yeah.
real quick, let me take all my clothes off and come
Yeah.
And I do
If they're gonna die, why is she
understand
doing
that because I.
STD screening?
What'd you say?
If they're gonna die, why is she doing the STD screening?
Yeah. Why is she so worried about how many people she had?
Yeah, you get grayscale down
And two quick things on
Yeah.
Jamie in the show. So
Sure,
one
yeah.
is, like, strategically, would you rather have Jamie, left-handed Jamie elevated by Widow's Wail, or like give a two-handed fighter Widow's Wail, like what's going to be more effective on the field.
I have a couple thoughts.
And then
Dragon Blast hand would be more effective.
Yes.
Swap that gold out. That gold is useless, but Dragon
What was the
Blast.
second part?
Served by Jamie being in more of like a commander/general role on the wall than
Yes.
him in the field. Like he's been in battles. Yeah, he lost with Springwood, but like I think for him to be like, I want to fight behind you on like while you take the left flank, and it just seems like a waste of his prowess and like obviously ability without a hand.
It might be, but I'm gonna cite one person, Corn Halfhand. No, but so I've said this for a long time.
They kind of roughly accepted him, right? Like they didn't.
Yeah.
There
And that
wasn't
wasn't
like a.
on.
He's kind of an outsider still.
No,
but
he
they
lost.
accepted him
Corn
as a
Halfhand
fighter.
lost
I don't know about people commanding. Like people were spitting at him.
Less sure now that you're questioning
Okay,
it, but
I could be wrong.
does every Corn Halfhand lost his main
Yes,
sword?
because the whole his mythology.
Well, he
is
lost
created by
half of
fighters.
it. Yeah.
Half of it. Somebody switches his hand.
Yeah, he does switch hands.
So I always
Right,
look
left,
at that
right.
as a.
That might have been what I was thinking of.
Yeah,
I
that's
tweeted
the-
something out saying that
the
I
foreshadow.
think something that might happen this week is like Jamie's going to be a very effective fighter with Widow's Wail, and people are going to be like, how is he good at fighting? He lost his hand, and I'm going to be like, Corn Halfhand. Same thing. But yeah, like if he isn't though, like say he's not good at fighting anymore, then yes.
Seems
it
like
would
a
be-
waste of Valyrian
I
cells
think
off
that,
base.
I just think that it's less likely, especially that the people, like the Northerners were going to like listen to him. You know,
Yeah.
Sansa
That's a good
can,
point.
Sansa can say, you know, if Brienne trusts him, I trust him, and, you know, Dany can kind of find whatever, shrug off, like, everything on her part, but that doesn't mean that their people are going, you know, that the small folk or the fighters are going to would actually listen to him.
Yeah, morale is really important, and yeah,
Yes.
if they're not in it, like they saw that scene where they spit at him, where Tyrion and
Yeah.
Jaime, like this dude
That's a
spit at
great
him.
point.
So yeah, they just wouldn't.
All
That's
right,
good-
so
that's
we
good
gotta
point.
wrap up in a few
Oh.
minutes, but real quick, do we wanna go into some who's gonna die?
Yes.
Oh boy.
Grey Worm.
Grey Worm's
Brienne.
dead.
Grey Worm and Brienne, yeah, they're near the top there.
Yeah.
Aurora's gonna die.
Rhaegal, yeah.
Beric.
Barrick's
Barrick,
gonna
yeah,
die
Barrick.
because of life.
Yeah.
But does Barrick pass his life force on? Like that's why is he still? Is that why he's been around so long?
I think
Ghost
so.
who showed up for
Sandor,
4
maybe?
seconds.
Ghost is dead.
Ghost is in trouble.
Yeah, Ghost has a budgetary
Ghost is-
constraint.
Every time the dire wolf dies, the child becomes less stark.
He's already
Yeah.
I do think
Well, and
Barrick-
also the fact that like Ghost definitely won't live out the series. He won't be the one wolf that lives out the series.
Nymeria is still alive somewhere.
Right, but I mean, we haven't seen her like she's not. She's completely detached. From
Which is Arya's detachment as being no one. When she sees Nymeria again, she's like, maybe, you know, the ghosts are symbolic.
Yeah. No, definitely.
And I get why everybody thinks Brienne is going to die, and I hate that it's so logical because I just really like I keep thinking like I just don't want her to at all. But bad.
I agree. Could Barrick, and you're mentioning it, we were talking about this in the bar just before we walked in. Could Barrick, and this is a popular idea, resurrect Arya, who's already kind of had Lady Stoneheart notes? If she dies, he resurrects Arya and makes her like really Lady Stoneheart show version.
One thing I see, instead of Barrick
No, go ahead. Yes.
instead of Barrick resurrecting Arya, is a popular theory is that Arya lives because they shouldn't kill anyone Stark. And Sandor Clegane dies, and Barrick Lady Stoneheart's him. Because he has to have Clegane Bowl.
To make Clegane Bowl work.
Because if they don't have Clegane Bowl,
That works too.
They don't have Clegane Bowl. I've been saying since season 1, if they don't have Clegane Bowl, I'm writing.
That's another.
Especially now that they
like,
basically
Yeah.
telegraphed it. If they didn't have it at this point, it'd be like.
Especially
because
given all the
Sandor's entire also is just going to be a difficult battle for him.
You'd have 2 zombies too. Then you'd have
Yeah,
fire
so
white.
it's zombie versus zombie.
Yeah. Zombie bowl.
Spy versus
Zombie.
spy.
Alright, we got like a minute or 2 left, so any last thoughts?
What are your thoughts on how you kill Viserion? How do you kill a white? You kill a white with fire. How do you
You
kill
should
a
be
white
running
dragon?
after
I mean, it's a dance. I think it's gonna be a dance of like a dance of the dragons thing.
Yeah.
honestly.
It's
He's
not
gonna
two
pop
dragons
off
fight,
their
they both-
dragon.
I
to
don't
get
see any
killed
of
in
the
that.
dragons surviving.
Yeah.
the series.
That's one lesson we learned from the Dance of Dragons is when they 2 dragons fight, they kill each other.
Yeah.
Unless
Shouldn't a
one's
white
way
dragon
bigger than the
really
other.
suck against normal dragons?
And even when one's way bigger than the other will still be.
Boros loves something like that
Yeah.
on Twitter. He drew a picture and Arya throws her special weapon.
Right into
He
its
catches
eye.
it and then there's a thing that's inside that shoots out and hits him right in the
Oh.
head. I already love
That's amazing.
That's great. That's cool, yeah. I'm down for that.
All right.
Discussion, guys.
Yeah, thank you
very
guys
cool.
for coming.
And do you want to talk about any of this?